Today on the Winning with Shopify podcast,
Rebel Cheese is a non-dairy, plant-based vegan cheese company.
I know from experience if I start deleting apps, SEO starts going up.
Where would a brand like us fit, and how do we know that those numbers, those metrics actually are relevant to us?
You've just made what is one of the most complicated parts of e-commerce and just running a retail-related business. You've made it sound so simple.
It's the process of continuously learning and improving and knowing that whatever is working today may not work tomorrow.
I think so many brands are like, well, we kind of do this, we kind of do that. It doesn't really work like that.
I got to be ready for all the emails that come in from all of the dumb things you didn't think about.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Winning with Shopify podcast. If it's your first time tuning in, subscribe, review, get involved, go to our website, join the Growth Hub, join our newsletter, and just engage as much as you can. Everything for brands that we do is completely free to do with the podcast. We do charge for our services, but the podcast element is completely free. So get involved, get on our newsletter, get some exclusive discounts. If you've been tuning in for a while and you've not done any of those things, then please do. It really helps support the show, especially YouTube. We're really pushing our YouTube channel at the moment. We're getting thousands of views on there. Our TikTok and Instagram are starting to pick up as well, which is absolutely amazing. And it's so good having you guys on this journey. And as I was literally just saying a few minutes ago, it'd be so pointless without all of you. So thank you so much for supporting the show. I'm honored to have an amazing brand and amazing guest on the show today. He's done a huge amount of work ahead of today, coming up with some amazing questions, some great answers. His name is Paul. He's the CTO of Rebel Cheese. Paul, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm amazing, Nick. Great, wonderful to be here. This is such a huge honor. You're like my trinity of e-commerce.
You don't have to say that.
You're my weekly go-to guys. So thank you so much.
Oh, amazing. I really appreciate that. And it's so good to have you on. And I'm glad we've been helpful on the journey. My wife would tell me my head gets too big when people say this. So hopefully she doesn't listen to this bit. But so good to have you on, Paul. I'm so excited today. You've got an amazing background. The business is awesome. Some of the questions that I've got on my list or topics to talk about with you, I'm really excited about and deliberately don't know too much about so I can hear fresh on the show. But I mentioned your background, Paul. Tell us what your background is and how you got involved in being the CTO of Rebel Cheese in the first place.
Oh, sure. So total, I've spent about 27 years in tech. I started right out of college as a software developer for 12 years at IBM here in Austin, Texas. And then after that, for about 5 years, I was a product manager at the company is currently called NXP Semiconductor Company, but it used to be called Freescale Semiconductor. Then after that, I spent about 6.5 years as a senior product manager at Amazon. And Amazon, as everyone knows, huge company. The organization that I was specifically in was the Amazon.com part, or what we call retail. And that gave me a lot of experience in the large enterprise version of e-commerce. And so when I met Kirsten and Fred, the co-founders of Rebel Cheese, about 6 years ago, they had just started Rebel Cheese and kind of maintained friends with them for those few years. And when we had the opportunity in 2023 to be on Shark Tank, I was able to join as someone just it was meant to be the person to fix their e-commerce site, which was not on Shopify at the time. So my first job within a week was to migrate the old stack onto Shopify and get us ready for our Shark Tank launch.
And sorry to interrupt, but what was it on before Shopify? What was the previous platform?
Oh, so it was on Square. I don't want to disparage. The Squares are perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It does what it does, but
Mm.
where we needed to go for all of the traffic and everything that was about to happen, Shopify was just a much better stack. And I had looked at other platforms like WooCommerce and Magento, but Shopify, just as your listeners, viewers know, just the fact that you can tune and tweak everything yourself and make your own mistakes is just the power of Shopify.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And see, you've been involved in Rebel Cheese for a few years now. CTO, like that's not the normal job title we would have on the show. Like chief, I'm guessing it's chief technical officer. What is your role involved then? Like how are you involved in the business? Like what sort of things do you look after?
So I would say, in a short sentence, my main job is being like the father guardian of the software stack. So initially, it was our D2C e-commerce stack, Shopify. And over the months after Shark Tank, as we've built out our direct wholesale program, I set up a separate Shopify store for wholesale, and our distribution channel that has been building up. The software that distribution is using is Google Sheets. So not necessarily, so I have a project in place to also migrate that over to Shopify as well. And our two brick and mortar locations use Toast. So I have to integrate all the different software, whether it's Shopify or ShipStation, which we use for fulfillment and shipping management. Our new inventory management system, we are just like days, hopefully, away from turning on Katana. So keeping track of all the integrations, making sure that everything is talking to each other, as well as some side pieces of software like Polar Analytics, which we use to pull all those metrics together to get one big dashboard so we can kind of hopefully keep a pulse on everything. Yeah.
You've just made what is one of the most complicated parts of e-commerce and just running a retail related business. You've made it sound so simple. So you're clearly good at what you're doing. I find so many hours that we spend, even just as an agency here, fixing analytics, getting that to talk to Shopify. We're doing a Shopify to eBay and a Shopify to Amazon integration for a client at the moment. I say integration, we're just setting them up, and it's so good just clicking like new app, set that up, set up some information, the eBay profile's created, the product listings are going up, which means we can focus our time on the imagery, the text, the titles, the marketing. How do we position those prices and that kind of thing? So Shopify is amazing, but I always find it, and I was saying this before we hit record as well, like I find it amazing when people move to Shopify, they think, great, all my technical woes are over. So one of my questions, which I think you've kind of answered already, was really going to be, why would a Shopify brand need a CTO? Like, they've got all these things, but I think you've explained really well, actually. There's two Shopify stores. There's another store that is currently running through a Google Sheet for wholesale. There's obviously Toast running in the stores themselves and that kind of thing. So there's a lot going on. For most brands in using Shopify, what would your advice be about when they move to Shopify in terms of setting that expectation about it? Because it's not all your technical woes are fixed. There are some, we're going to talk about a few of these as we go through. There are some pitfalls and things that can really affect actually commercial trade if you get them wrong. What would your advice be to someone who's looking to move to Shopify, or you've just moved there and thought, great, tech's finished, I can just do marketing for the rest of my life?
So it's a big question. I would say in general, I mean, this seems pretty obvious for all small business owners, whether you're on Shopify or not, but just the critical piece of a small business owner is keeping your costs under control. And with that, Shopify does provide a great way for you to see, okay, here's my AOV, my conversion ratio, sessions turning into orders, which first time versus returning customers. So all those basic metrics you get access to. And then where you have to know for your small business, whether you're the founder or in a supporting role like myself, is are those numbers good? Because if you don't know, like if you don't have a comparative like counterpoint to know, like, okay, we're for us food CPG in the US. And our, just to give a little bit of background, our average order value for a typical customer is going to be about $110. And that's about five items in a cart. And they come back about every 40, 45 days. So $110 might seem high for food doing e-commerce that also happens to be perishable food. And so I have to spend a lot of time listening to podcasts like yourself and others and reading articles about food CPG, but also e-commerce in general to find out like where would a brand like us fit and how do we know that those numbers, those metrics actually are relevant to us just because they might be really good for somebody else. And then the costs that go with that because one of the good and the bad things about Shopify is that you have all these apps, and that's also the bad thing is you have all these apps. So you have to
Yeah.
know, like, okay, if I start having 20 or 30 apps to do all these little different things, they might be saving me time, but end up costing me a lot of money that I may not see until 30, 60 days later. And you might realize later that, oh, there's actually a feature built into Shopify that I didn't know about that I could have actually adjusted or tuned to do one of those things. So for me, it's the process of continuously learning and improving and knowing that whatever is working today may not work tomorrow, or vice versa. Whatever is not working today may work tomorrow for different reasons, new customers, different segments like moving into Canada or Mexico or the UK. That's where you just have to keep continuously improving and changing and adapting, and that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah. We're going to come back to apps in a second because you've hit about five of my like nerve points as an SEO guy about apps. So we're going to come back to apps in a sec. Sales tax is overwhelming. Never mind the stress that comes with a provider that's overpriced, unreliable, or leaves you waiting days to get a reply. TaxCloud is here to tell you there's a better way. They're not just a tool, they're a trusted filing partner for growing Shopify brands. They will work directly with the states on your behalf to handle registrations, filings, and ongoing compliance, so you can stay focused on growing your business. Plus, with a 4.9 star rating on the Shopify App Store, merchants trust TaxCloud to get it right, and you can too. Go ahead and check them out at taxcloud.com/winning. This is exclusive for the Winning with Shopify podcast listeners, and you will get a free migration onboarding service when you decide to make the switch. So that's taxcloud.com/winning. One thing I completely forgot to ask you, Paul, and this will show how like clean cut the podcast actually is. I didn't actually ask you what Rebel Cheese do. I mean, I know because I've known of you guys for a while. Give us a quick overview to it, because you mentioned about perishable products, food, FMCG, which suddenly reminded me like, well, it's not just you don't actually sell dairy cheese at all, do you? It's it's vegan and different. So tell us quickly just the product range as well, so people can picture what you guys do.
Yes, that's correct. So Rebel Cheese is a non-dairy, plant-based vegan cheese company. In a nutshell, our elevator pitch is we make handcrafted, artisanal, non-dairy, plant-based cheeses for people who want to see good aged fermented cheeses like brie, smoked cheddar, parmesan, mozzarella that you would be happy to present on a charcuterie board. So we don't do shreds, we don't do slices in a bag. We want you, if you're going to have a picnic or have a centerpiece where you're going to have a party and people stop and look and like, oh my God, what is that? That can't be like dairy truffle brie. What is this smoked cheddar, this pimento cheese? So that's where we're elevating what you would normally see as an everyday product into something that's more artisanal, European. And so what we do, and a lot of people ask, like vegan cheese, isn't that like just a lot of preservatives and fillers? So that's one of the things that makes us unique is we are taking the exact same processes and procedures and techniques that the dairy industry uses, just instead of cow, sheep, goat milk, we're using nut-based milk. So that's the medium we start with, cashew milk or almond milk. And then from there, the rest of it is aging and fermenting the cheeses to get a 2-week-old truffle brie or a smoked cheddar or a pimento cheese or pepper jack or a Gouda or mozzarella or any of these types of elevated cheeses.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of people around me are vegan, and I call myself a flexitarian. I'm not vegan, but I eat a lot of vegan meals and stuff. So I've tried quite a lot of vegan cheeses, and I think some of them have just not got it right. Like you eat a cheese and it tastes more like a soybean, and you think it's not quite right. It's not quite where it needs to be. But if anyone's sitting there thinking to themselves as well, I'm struggling to get my brand positioning and stuff right. Paul, you've just described in like I think that even just the first kind of 2 or 3 sentences, your elevator pitch, absolutely nailed what you guys are about. There was 3 or 4 different whys in there about the handmade, the artisan, the we want to put it on a cheese board. So people take inspiration from actually what you've just said, Paul, because I think it was such a beautiful way of explaining it, and it just rolls off the tongue because you guys have cemented that positioning. I think so many brands are like, well, we kind of we kind of do this, we kind of do that. It doesn't really work like that to get it nailed. So then when you come to like a Google ads or your homepage of the website, trying to nail that can be really, really difficult. But I promised we're going to come back to apps. So apps, I know from experience, if I start deleting apps, depending on which ones I delete, SEO starts going up because, and our rankings go up and traffic increases because of the page speed and page load and that sort of thing. Give us an overview then to how you guys, because you mentioned kind of that's one of the things you would advise people on with Shopify. How at Rebel Cheese, in your role, have you actually attacked some of the page speed problems, some of the functionality problems? You mentioned obviously listening to podcasts, but what have been some of the outputs that you guys have then like have you developed your own code for things? Are you using an all-in-one app? So you got one app does 20 things, or have you gone for small but really light apps? What's your approach?
So great question. So one of the well, a couple of apps that I use are Microsoft's Clarity for heat map and tracking, and also seeing some of the page lags, but also Shopify's own web page performance on the analytics on the theme editor, and uh, Lighthouse are great tools that help you just know, are we accidentally, inadvertently putting too much JavaScript, heavy, big images? Now, Shopify is good about making sure that it's helping you not have 50 meg PNGs, JPEGs, just by the nature that it prevents you from loading them into the store to begin with. But still, you still want to make sure that you don't have a death by a thousand paper cuts. Because if you get a little lazy with some JPEGs and PNGs after you have a few hundred, then overall, you've lost the plot as far
Mm.
as the page
Yeah.
speed and time. And it also helps you. What I like to do with my Shopify specialist, who helps be my counterbalance, is about every so often, 30 days, we do an analysis to reassess. Like, okay, with A/B testing of the landing page, product pages, uh, even the images, is this still the best thing that's working? So we'll do that through a careful balance of the quantitative data, like I just said, using some of the tools either built within Shopify or Lighthouse or heat map, Clarity for heat map testing, A/B testing, but then also the qualitative. So we do. I have a post-purchase. I use User Loop for my post-purchase survey. So that's what I found is the hottest time to get someone. They've already spent 110 to 120, $30, ask them a question, two or three questions right away. I give them a 10% discount if they answer all the questions. And I have like a 37% response rate. After about a year of doing it, I like have 110,000 responses. So a huge amount of qualitative responses to find out. One of the reasons it's good to do that, not just for different demographics, but where it was a big eye opener before Shark Tank. Of course, our world was a lot smaller, and therefore our customers were vegan or vegetarian. After Shark Tank, when I launched that post purchase survey and I asked, what's your lifestyle? How would you describe yourself? Vegan, vegetarian, lactose, dairy intolerant, or sensitive? Our world shifted. So we have a steady 35% of our customers are about or would describe themselves as vegan or vegetarian. 55% of our customers
Wow.
are dairy, lactose intolerant or
Mm.
sensitive. So that's to what you were saying earlier, a huge eye
Yeah.
opener. From a marketing, whether it's paid or organic, we need to start looking at the much bigger slice of the pie because in the US, about 3% of the US population identifies as vegan versus about 55 to 60% of the US population has some sort of dairy sensitivity, whether it's full-blown lactose intolerance or it makes their digestive system not happy. So why would we go after a small little slice versus a large, large swath? So that's been very eye-opening as far as testing, not just messaging apps and performance, but knowing where we want to shift our messages
Mm.
along the way.
It's amazing. Like the phrase in my head is like it's almost like you found the non-obvious, but has become obvious audience, which I think is fascinating because hey guys, I just want to take a moment aside from today's episode to introduce one of our amazing sponsors, Cavella. They are the all-in-one platform that helps you design, sample, and launch your product lines. Cavella are helping Shopify brands save up to 40% on stock costs thanks to their smart, streamlined supply chain. That means more profit for you, less costs, and loads of time saved in trying to get stock on your shelves. Right now, you can fast track their waiting list and get 50% of your first sample order just by using the code WINNING at checkout. This is an exclusive offer for Winning with Shopify podcast listeners. Just go to the link in our description or in our bio to unlock the savings and skip the queue. You build your brand, save on stock, and step into the future of e-commerce with Cavella. That code again, WINNING. Back to the episode. We've worked with quite a few brands that are like we've worked with a loose leaf tea brand that were really against plastic in tea bags, and they had this war on plastic in tea bags. And when you say to someone, you do realize like 10 to 20% of what you drink in a tea bag, and maybe we drink more tea in the UK, but in the tea bag, 10 to 20% of it is plastic that you're drinking. People kind of go, whoa, that's awful. And then they make another cup of tea using a tea bag rather than the loose leaf. They don't make a lifestyle change. But then when we pivoted the marketing to say, actually, it's delicious, like these are all after effects. Like it's like I guess it's with some people like the brand of tobacco you might smoke or the alcohol you might drink or the chocolate you might choose. You're actually going down probably, I hate to say it, but the selfish route of going, I just prefer it, it's better. So the dairy route might be, I feel more comfortable. So I've got some level of dairy intolerance. This cheese tastes amazing and it's dairy free. So that's a really, really good alternative to me. But actually what you even project verbally to people is, oh, and it's vegan because you like telling people you're actually eating a vegan cheese, even though it's not vegan. But it's pivoting the marketing around that. And I think certainly for brands more in their infancy, it's kind of going back to your one liner on what we do as a brand. It's so difficult to kind of work that out until you've got enough traction. I call it the chicken and egg. You got to get enough sales, get enough data to be able to analyze, to be able to get some qualitative reports done or quantitative data together to understand what really, really works. Um, we've spoken about apps then. So bigger than just the apps in Shopify, your bigger, wider tech stack. Are there any specific decisions you made early on that you've actually gone, that was a terrible idea, or actually it's been a game changer for us and we should have done it sooner, or we didn't understand how powerful it was when we first integrated that tech or used a new piece of software?
Well, every day I make tons of mistakes.
Don't we all?
I just hope I'm learning from them. But I think, um, again, it was lack of time and just wearing too many hats. I wish that I had more time earlier after we launched our Shark Tank episode to be able to get a really good understanding of the shipping costs, uh, for which would include things like because we are plant-based cheeses, we're perishable. So that means our goal is to try to get the product to you once we ship. So the fulfillment may take 3 or 4 days for the kitchen to make the products, et cetera. But once we say your product is shipped, 2 days or less. So that means we have to have insulation in the boxes that we make sure are compostable or recyclable, ice packs that are going to be enough ice packs that will keep the product at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or less for that 1 to 2 day travel, and also not cause the box to weigh so much that we pay a crazy amount of shipping costs from FedEx or UPS. So my co-founder Fred and I are constantly analyzing and reanalyzing who is the best cardboard box vendor, who is the best insulation vendor, who is the best ice pack vendor, as well as other things like the tape that goes on there, because everybody wants to sell you stuff. But if one of our sub goals as Rebel Cheese is to also be sustainable and try to have the least impact on the planet as we can as far as these materials, that already eliminates a lot of those. And once we sign that contract for truckloads of boxes and ice. Oh, one of the things I didn't mention is we own our entire vertical. So we have our own production kitchen, our own warehouse, our own fulfillment center. So we own everything, which allows us to own everything, but also make our own mistakes that can be very costly. So
Yeah.
when we place
It's
that order
so,
for the
sorry to interrupt, but just to say it's really interesting just on that point that you mentioned about making our own mistakes. Because I think a lot of brands I talk to, whether they've made the jump or they're planning to make the jump to do all their own fulfillment or warehousing, they think it's going to be better. But every change, every move, it must come with its own challenges. So I just wanted to flag it. I really appreciate you sharing that because it's quite a humble thing to hear, actually, that it sounds amazing, but actually it does come with its own challenges of now we don't have a fulfillment company doing what they do best. We're trying to do that bit ourselves, which means
yeah,
we're gonna make mistakes along the way.
that's both pro and con because we sign the contract and then 2 weeks later, two semi trucks, 18 wheelers of insulation come or cardboard come and we're like, okay, we're committed to this now.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a very
absolutely.
expensive mistake. Versus, we've had some of our partners and other CPG brands that have co-mans or other 3PLs that do that. They sign the contract. It's the wrong box, the wrong packaging. They're also committed because that's that. So it's the same. Just who is going to own the mistake and that
Yeah, yeah,
financial
yeah.
burden.
That
But
makes
that does
sense.
allow us to do that with to your question, I wish I had been able to have more time to learn that so that we could carefully follow the rules of what FedEx and UPS were wanting us and be able to set up the software to monitor on a very regular basis. We've been able to correct that now by having AI and some tools that one of our other co-founders, Kirsten, made that are trying to make sure to carefully monitor the shipping costs so that if we're using FedEx or UPS, they have different rules versus weight versus dimensions so that we're staying within that so that we don't end up with a surprise bill, at the end of the week or 30 days later.
Yeah, and I guess at your level as well, if you make, I mean, you call it a mistake, but even if it's just if it's underestimated by 5%, you times that 5% cost underestimation by a few thousand orders, and suddenly the finance director's knocking on your door going, Paul, we need to talk. And it's like, what have I done now? It's always that kind of conversation which we need to avoid. I think it's so easy though, isn't it, with Shopify, which is also definitely a blessing, but can also be a bit of a curse, to say that it's so easy just to like put the FedEx app into Shopify. And if an order comes in and FedEx goes, great, we'll come pick it up or drop it off to us, which we'll get that thing out to the customer. And what you don't see is there's no one approving all those individual costs. So I've noticed with so many clients over the years, and although we're in front end customer acquisition, we hear about these things from clients where they've missed kind of like one use case where it's like this one product's not expensive enough, but it's heavy, so it doesn't justify the shipping cost. And it's normally when we turn around and say, hey, we've got a new bestseller product, ROI on Google's going through the roof, and they're like, stop selling them. They're made of concrete. Like, it's so heavy, and we don't make it. It's fine if they order the product that goes on the concrete, but don't just sell the concrete. And we're like, oh, we've become a bit of a niche for and we actually had that with concrete bases to parasol umbrellas for people's gardens at one point. It's like, if they buy an umbrella, fine. If they don't buy an umbrella, it costs us more to ship than the product costs. And it was like, okay, we'll just put the price up. And they did. And we eventually found the right kind of financials in a different delivery company. But as I say, it's those little use cases. And I'm sure you guys have had this over the years. Those little use cases can really come back to sting you if you get them wrong, especially on your level, because one little mistake becomes 1,000 when 1,000 orders have gone through.
Right, and related to that is also having worked at a company like Amazon, everyone expects free shipping, 1 day, 1 hour delivery. It's like, okay, we can't do that.
If you
Like,
think about it, it's at your front door. Yeah.
that's not how like small business operate. You can't just give free. So we're having to carefully always discuss and rediscuss, analyze what is the correct threshold. Is it a $20 flat fee, but knowing that we still are going to eat a certain amount? Because if the cost is $24 to ship a product, we're eating that $4. Did we then send that message on the website to customers like, hey, you might think $20 is expensive, but it's actually costing us $24? Or we have to think about that. The customer probably doesn't care about that. They're probably thinking that's your problem, not mine. So
Yep.
I just want this when I want it. So
Yeah.
those little things that are interesting and always a constant battle to discuss.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because I think certainly from the kind of financials point of view, you're looking at a spreadsheet and saying, oh, it's too expensive, or here's how we're going to make it work on the financials with product prices, delivery costs, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's always some creative genius that comes in the room at some point and goes, hey, have you tried this delivery company? And it's like, well, that just changes everything. So I always say you need to kind of balance, make sure there's the space for the creativity to find solutions to these creative solutions to these problems. And the creative solution we've seen with one client in particular was actually to say, we're going to put the whole delivery cost on the customer. We know our competitors don't do that. It gives us a competitive like disadvantage. But the reason that they did that, or the way they countered that, was creatively to say, do you know what? You don't want the delivery cost to be cheap. As you say, you need this product to be refrigerated on its transit, and it needs to arrive refrigerated, which means we're not going to leave it on your doorstep in the middle of summer while you're not there, and everything will just fall apart, and it'll be a disaster. And also, I don't know what the laws are in the US, but you're liable, like we're still liable. It's all these kind of things. I think actually explaining stuff like that, or having like a booked delivery slot if it's a large furniture item, like we've got one client that they offer free delivery on their sofas. They offer premium delivery where it's going to be a morning or an afternoon, and then they offer like a 1 hour slot delivery. And we've actually found by changing the design of it, the 1 hour slot delivery has become the most popular, even though it costs another £100. But the sofa itself would cost over 1,000. So you're adding 10-15%, 10% or less, sorry, to the cost, but you've got that. So how much do you then have to work or get involved yourself in marketing, because you're the one that's come up with the integration or the spreadsheet that says we can do this effectively and we can do this efficiently from a cost analysis point of view?
Oh, so that's a great question. Because we're a small uh, company, there's really only about 15 or less of us that I would consider like the corporate team, which is kind
Cool.
of weird saying that coming from
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah.
The core of us that do all the work, like that are not and I don't, that probably came out the wrong way, but the folks that are in the production kitchen or working at the restaurants or in the fulfillment center uh, are doing their respective roles. But the rest of us that are the two co-founders, our marketing uh, lead, customer service, those we all get together to make those decisions because to your question, I am seeing it from the tech stack. Our marketing person is seeing it from the messaging to the customer. Our customer service lead has to think about like, I got to be ready for all the emails that come in from all of the dumb things you didn't think about. Then our co-founder
Love
who
it.
handles the APAR, he's looking at like, okay, well, that's going to cost us this amount, and uh, our other co-founder. So we all have our different lens and how we
That's
look at
really
things.
cool.
That really helps so that we're
Yeah.
trying to look around the corners as much as possible.
And I find this so much, and we'll talk about. There's a couple other questions I want to sort of throw in there, but just to add to this, I find that from a marketing content point of view, people like the CTO, the customer service team are vital, and I'd say even more in the B2B kind of lead generation world than e-commerce, like we're talking about today. But in B2B, we find that we often say like, get us your best salesperson and show us just in a minute per pitch, just whip us through the slide deck and and just a quick analysis, the conversation you had for your best three corporate companies or deals you signed recently, and half the stuff they talk about not on the website, not in the ads, nobody knew about. And it's like, well, that's the reason people bought from you. Let's get them to the forefront, because that's the real thing that made people tick. Because you're the guy who's been, or the woman who's been standing in front of people and shaking their hand at the end of that conversation. It's exactly the same in e-commerce with customer service. It made me laugh just you say the dumb things we did that are causing problems. I've had a few emails from customer service teams saying like, "You're our marketing agency. Why have you got this on the ads?" And we're like, "Well, it's on the website. Why is it on the website?" Like, instantly, this investigation begins of like, and it. Yeah, and there's a whole world of outcomes that come from that. But I love the way you describe. Actually, we sit down and talk about things. Say, guys, we're going to change this. What does that mean for you, for you, for you? And almost a space where each person, each team, each department can bring ideas and say, at customer service, we get a lot of questions about this. Could we put something on the website to stop that? That becomes a marketing campaign. You think of a bit of tech actually that could solve that problem for customers. It might be that they're asking about delivery times and we should put something on the website about it. You can change the SMS messages that go out, and this whole conveyor belt of things can come along to fix that use case. And ultimately, it means you get more attention from your customers and you get more sales. But some good things must come out of that when you're then looking forward with these ideas. So the question I really want to ask you is, looking forward, what are some of the things in the e-commerce world and also within Rebel Cheese that you specifically, as well as the company, are really excited about looking forward in what, if you read the news in the UK or the USA right now, it's all looking a bit bleak. Like, tell us some of the stuff you're excited about at the moment, looking forwards.
So it's a looking forward. Uh, I mean, kind of the looking forward, but right in front of us right now is tariffs. So what's this world going to be? But I think it's going to give us a good exercise, small businesses, large businesses, to have a plan B and a plan C. So if your supply chain has traditionally been like, we get this set of ingredients from this country in Southeast Asia, and then these from Latin America, do you have a backup plan? And that's easier said than done because for small businesses, no, we don't.
Mm.
because, because it's money. Like we don't. So that's going to give us all a chance to sit down and think. We need to have a plan B and C. So when any kind of shifts happen in the world, we're ready for that as well. And not just from the supply chain, but what's the messaging? Because if you rely on your products being organic, or like you were saying earlier about the tea company with the plastic, you might need to also pivot when your product ingredients or whatever changes. That might change some of the messaging to customers, and you have to get ahead of that. Another one that's, I mean, it's kind of tiresome right now for folks is AI. We are looking at AI all over the place. I mean, me specifically, because I'm the tech person in the team.
You
I
must know about AI, surely. That's probably what people say to you
so
quite a lot.
what I've been doing with Polar Analytics, which is a fantastic tool to gather all the metrics, is I've also been I hope none of the polar people are on or kind of, but I've been reverse
You're
engineering.
safe, don't worry.
I've been reverse engineering what they do, so I can see, because again, they need to make money, but it's a very expensive analytics piece of software. So now with apps, no code apps like Replit, and I was able to build essentially my version of a control center. I need a better name for it. Trying to think of like, who is it, TARDIS or Jarvis or something, but I built a control center that will essentially pull in all of the metrics reports that I need from Shopify, ShipStation, Gorgeous, Rebuy, Judge Me for reviews, so that we can see all in one place, a Klaviyo, all of those metrics, those reports, and how they interact with each other. And I would say a year ago, having a no code app like something like Replit would have just been clunky and impossible to use. But now, within about 5 weeks, I was able to build something that's actually very usable and is I can see, month to month is going to get even easier and better to use. So that's something I think it doesn't matter how big or small your company is, and how, if you're in food, clothing, tea, whatever it is, AI is going to be a part of our lives, just like smartphones, the internet, cloud services, electricity. It's going to be something that we know, like, why wouldn't this have AI? We're not even going to be talking about it as a thing in the next few months to years. It's just going to be part of every piece of software that's just going to help you. And that's just something we have to really get used to using and feel comfortable with it, or hire somebody that is comfortable with it from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to say on AI, if this is going to be a selfish plug, and I'm doing this selflessly, Growth Hub, guys, is our community. It's completely free. If you want to join anybody, go and check out the Growth Hub. It might have just happened, but we're probably going to do a few on them. We did an email one about email content just before I recorded this episode with Paul, where I'm sitting right now. We will have done one on AI, I think, before this episode's gone out, but we're going to do a few more. They're completely free roundtables. They're on Google Meets. You just come along. I'm the only non-brand there, and as soon as the brands are talking, I just kind of go quiet or I instigate conversation if needs be. But it's an opportunity to talk about AI. And something we did on the email one is we started discussing some of the AI tools people are using and how they're using them. And Tara, you deserve a shout out, Tara. You've been such a core part of the community since before we launched it. Tara mentioned, and I'll leave it with Tara to kind of talk about it in the chats on there. But Tara mentioned she's now got an email she can send, or an email address she can send an email to you saying, discount this brand on my site by 10%. And it goes to ChatGPT and then goes through to a Shopify store and everything starts discounting, which is absolutely incredible. And it's just amazing seeing these use cases of how people are using AI and starting to bring it together. I think it's certainly not going to replace William Shakespeare in the near future, but it is starting to do certainly those like domino effect where you're like, I just want to tell it one thing and have it do all of this, or here's tons of data. Tell me, based on all this data, tell me what product I should put in my homepage banner right now. What's the best selling product based on my inventory levels, current sales trajectory, stock that's coming in? And it can do that in real time. It can do it very quickly. And then you can go and check it yourself. And it's easier to go and check what it's come up with than find the answer yourselves, which I think is amazing. Um, Last question then, Paul. So we're going to finish on this. Just having a quick glance at the time. What are some exciting new features and launches that we should keep an eye out specifically from Rebel Cheese coming up in the near future?
Oh, so I would say one thing is, hopefully, if things go well, we would like to open a. So we consider Austin, Texas, our home, our main distribution center. We make all the products here. We're fulfilling and shipping from here. Again, like I said, we own the entire vertical stack. But we do realize that to get broad reach across the US for customer experience and controlling costs, we have plans to open a second distribution center on the East Coast of the US, hopefully, second half of this year. And then, if that goes well, maybe in 26, open another distribution center along the West Coast. And the plan for that would be, by having the three distribution centers, Austin, East Coast, and West Coast, it'll allow us to do ground delivery within one day, which will really dramatically just decrease the costs of shipping and all of those materials that I talked about earlier. And we were shipping to Canada as a test because we got a lot of emails from customers in Canada about the lack of good quality plant-based cheese products. Worked really well, and we had temporarily paused them because of the tariffs. We would like to turn it back on, and they've been a very, very loyal set of customers. And with that, in just a little bit, I'm going to be talking to a representative from Mexico, and he has about 25 grocery stores that he said Mexico is also very plant-based, very vegetarian culture, and would really, really love to have our products in. And he's willing to help us get into Mexico. And lastly, if all goes well with our distribution plan, we would love to be in the UK. One of our co-founders, Kirsten, is
We would
British.
love that too. Oh, is she? Brilliant. Love that. Absolutely. We're a tiny island. But yeah, we'd love to have Rebel Cheese here, definitely.
So we've been sending some test packages, and they make it safely across the pond. So we would love to be able to open up and distribute to the UK first, and then we have some very loyal German and Swiss. Swiss is very surprising, but very, very loyal
Yeah,
Swiss
yeah.
customers
Swiss
that would
cheese is a
love.
really big thing here in Europe. Yeah, yeah.
And I guess the last thing is we have been working really hard to get everything kosher. And hopefully, in the next week or two, we'll have our kosher certification, which for those of you that are not in food CPG brands, uh, the kosher community is is very, very, very loyal to their products because they look for those symbols that define that the brand has gone through very strict, very regimented analysis to determine that all the ingredients that go into your brand are also kosher. So that's one thing, the loyalty of the kosher community, those who practice a kosher lifestyle. The other thing that I learned in having to do this myself was that people who live in kosher neighborhoods, that they themselves are not kosher, have grown up thinking and believing that the kosher symbol is a sign of good health because of the strict regimented process to get your product kosher. So it actually serves as a health indicator for a lot of brands because of
Wow.
that rigorous testing. And so that's going to really help unlock a lot of the communities along the East Coast of the US and Houston.
Hmm.
We're very excited about that.
I think there was a similar thing actually with, and it's quite amusing looking back now, but it was fair trade. And I remember someone when it kind of clocked, because I used to think like, oh, fair trade must be really healthy because it's fairly traded, less pesticides and other stuff. And then it really came to a head when someone said, you know, Cadbury's chocolate, that's fair trade. It must be healthy. I was like, it can't be. It's chocolate. It cannot be healthy. Like, I mean, maybe it could in this day and age, but certainly 5 years ago, I was like, it can't be. And then I said, it's fairly traded, not healthy food. But I think kosher absolutely is because it's probably very similar to what I've forgotten the name of the diet now. The sugar-free diet that a lot of people do. I can't remember now. It's like carb-free, sugar-free, keto diet. That's it. So there's things like the keto diet where naturally you're cutting out things that we know are bad for our bodies, which is really exciting. But I mean, it's such an amazing journey you guys are on. I say this to some of my guests. We're going to try and get you back in a year if you're around, Paul. I appreciate your diary's probably getting more and more busy as time goes on. But we'll try and get you back in a year and see if you've opened these distribution centers. Plenty of brands we've worked with over the years have done that. One in particular was up in Washington State. They opened up on they were going to go East Coast. They did it in Texas instead. And now the delivery costs have been just dramatically dropped. I always imagine the US is in a massive V, isn't it? It's kind of like you got the coast down is Texas and back up the other coast. So no one wants to live in the desert. Well, some people do in the middle, in the Midwest. But Paul, I mean, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. Obviously, very, very busy individual, amazing career so far. And it feels like it's only just getting started in the Shopify world. So thank you so much for your time and thanks for all the insights you shared with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. This has been amazing. And yeah, definitely love to come back in a year. And that's going to put a light of fire under our butts to make sure
Yeah, well,
these.
you're going to have to open those distribution centers. I'm going to be really disappointed now. Otherwise, so no, I hope it all goes really, really well. And yeah, for everyone tuning in at home, if you want to reach out to Paul, Paul, what's the website? How can people find out about Rebel Cheese?
Oh, so we are rebelcheese.com. So rebel cheese, one word.com, easy URL. And my email is paul@rebelcheese.com. You can reach me via email. You can search for me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer any questions. I can tell you my mistakes. I don't know if I have the wisdom, but I can definitely tell you the mistakes I've made. So
I
yeah,
love that. Well, you've definitely done something really well to help bring the company to where it is today. So yeah, appreciate your time and definitely reach out to Paul if you do have any questions, especially about any of the apps we've mentioned today. And I think one thing that's really powerful as well that's probably worth asking you, Paul, from anyone is if you're thinking of using any of the apps or the tools that we've spoken about today. Paul doesn't strike me as someone who's just kind of added it and left it alone. You know, Paul's the CTO, so he's had to test the tech, make it integrate, probably found some holes and bugs, and as you say, probably made some mistakes which have led to using it better in the end result anyway. So definitely utilize that, guys. If you haven't already, I mentioned at the start, please hit the subscribe button, leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. Check out the Growth Hub as well, and you can come and check some amazing brands that we've got in there as well. And we hope you can join us again next week. Thank you for tuning in. Do you ever find that in your warehouse you have dead stock? You can't sell it, no one wants to buy it, and you can't get a refund on it? Or alternatively, you're missing inventory in your warehouse that you need. You've got sales coming in and you're low on stock and you haven't ordered more stock in time. All these things hit profit, and I've been there. I've run my own Shopify store and had exactly that problem. But we've partnered it up with Inventory Planner, who have the most incredible app to help you manage that and forecast exactly what products, what SKUs, even down to what color of product you need to order in advance to make sure stock levels remain consistent throughout. They're also running a 7-day boot camp. And if you want to go and sign up to that, it's 7 emails over 7 days. And it takes the same amount of time as your morning coffee. And in 7 days, like me, you can become an inventory management pro. Both links are in the description. Enjoy.